I mean this in the most complimentary way, but James Gunn just be giving anyone a DCU project. From heavy hitters like Wonder Woman, to people I had to Google like Sergeant Rock, to that Bane and Deathstroke film that is still a mystery, almost everyone is getting some play. But here's the thing, we're still missing out on some really important characters, and I think that needs to change. There are still a few corners of the universe that need exploration if we want to build a strong foundation for the DCU to stand on. So I've gone and put together a list of characters I want to see get their own movie or show, because if CLAYFACE of all people can get one, the possibilities are endless. He's my favorite Batman villain, okay? I'm allowed to say that. I actually had to get creative with this list too, because somehow we're already getting a Booster Gold show, and I made an entire video dedicated to my pitch for a Constantine show, and those were my go-to ideas for years, so I really had to lock in for this one. Up first is a Flash movie. I never said I was that creative, alright? Out of all of DC's heavy hitters, it's really just The Flash who is missing out on a project right now. Superman is the poster child of the universe, a Wonder Woman movie is being fast-tracked, Green Lantern is getting a show, and Batman is in development hell, but at least he has a movie in the pipeline and an incredible Elseworlds film on the way. It's really only Flash and Aquaman as the holdovers right now, but at least Aquaman has had a good movie, heavy emphasis on the singularity of that phrase. Meanwhile, The Flash has never had a movie before. Isn't that right? There's never been a Flash movie. General Zod and Supergirl? Grotesquely puppeting around dead actors for cheap nostalgia? I don't know what you're talking about, man. That must have been a bad dream you had. The only Flash representation we've had is that one show from the 90s, and the series on the CW that shockingly ran for 9 seasons. Which is news to me as someone who fell off at season 6. If I had to take my best guess, it seems like due to the recency of Flash appearances in live action, Gunn wants to put more time between adaptations, which I totally understand, but I can't stand for that. Despite how many times we've seen The Flash in live action, I still feel like we haven't quite cracked it. The series is fun, but very CW, for better and for worse. I think that the only way to properly make people forget about any previous adaptations that may or may not have happened is to make another Flash reboot, one that showcases him to his full potential and makes audiences fall in love with what that character is supposed to be. The Flash needs his Superman moment to wash away all these sins of the past, and the way to do that is by biting the bullet and making Wally West the main Flash of the DCU. I know Barry traditionalists are going to be at my throat, but blame Gunn, okay, not me. We are entering a DCU that has already been active for a few years. That means that characters like Batman have already killed a Robin, and Hal Jordan will probably die a brutal and painful death in Lanterns. As for Barry, I think it's best if we pick things up when he's in the twilight of his run. We've had our fair share of Barry in live action, and the only way to properly start fresh is to give Wally his time to shine. Ideally, you do it like this. Have Wally as the lead of the film, but Barry can still be the primary Flash at the start of it. Make it a movie about legacy, considering how heavy those themes are in the DCU right now, and let Barry pass the baton so Wally can start his race. You could even throw Jay Garrick in there, as long as he's played by Grant Gustin to keep the tradition alive, to really lean into that idea. In a perfect world, we can keep Barry around for a little longer and they don't kill him off right away too. I want to see a proper Flash and Kid Flash duo running around Central City for a bit before Barry painfully disintegrates. I'd also love to see them face off against the Rogues. It's truly baffling to me that we've never properly seen the Flash go up against his most interesting adversaries. Maybe an aging Barry is struggling against them more than he used to, and Wally entering his life at just the right time is able to reinvigorate him against the Rogues. I know there's going to be a lot of people who want to see the reverse Flash on the big screen, especially after how high Lex set the bar for hating, but I'd much rather they hold off on him. We had a series where he was the primary antagonist over the course of 9 seasons. If we want to differentiate this take on the Flash, we need to actually do something different. If you really want to introduce him though, save him for after Barry dies and let me see Eobard crash out knowing the man he obsessed over has been replaced. Until then, give us a flourishing Barry and Wally mentor-mentee dynamic on the big screen that finally does the Flash mythos justice. Oh god. Oh, my psychosis is starting to wear off. Oh, I'm rapidly remembering the Flash movie exists. God, why did they do this? Why did Batman kill himself for no reason? Please, just cut to the next character and end my splitting headache. Let's talk about a character who has never made their way into live action. Okay, except for Smallville, but that doesn't count. Everybody made it into Smallville, and nobody was allowed to be their full selves in that show. It is way past overdue for Zatanna to get her own movie. I learned this while researching for this video, but we have been hearing about a potential Zatanna movie for 20 years. It almost happened in 2005 and nothing came out of it. Then we had the infamous Guillermo del Toro Justice League Dark film that was confirmed in 2013 that she would have played a huge part in. They continued to practically edge us with that movie for a decade until canceling it in 2023. At the risk of this video spiraling out of control as I fall into a vengeful rage, how the f do you not make a Guillermo del Toro Justice League Dark movie? Hello? Is that not insane? What kind of bozo passes up on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like that? One of the best filmmakers working today handling one of the coolest DC teams? And some suit didn't want to make it, but approved The Flash in the same breath, and so help me God! Sorry about that. I clearly needed to get that out of my system and need therapy, but let's focus back on Zatanna. She even had her own film that was announced in 2021 and to be written by Emerald Fennell, writer of Saltburn and Promising Young Woman, but DC's constant shifting of management screwed her over too. It had a logo and everything, man. We've come so close to seeing Zatanna get her well-deserved time in the spotlight, and every single time the rug gets pulled out from under her. I'm no longer asking, I am demanding a Zatanna movie. She's one of the coolest characters DC has to offer and deserves infinitely more appreciation in adaptations. A charming and clever showman with a cool design is really all it takes for you to get hooked, but she's carved out a really interesting niche for herself in the DC universe. The idea of a stage magician who knows actual magic alone is sick as hell, but I love the wonderfully weird world she inhabits. Wonderfully weird world is a very hard phrase to say. I gotta stop writing like this. In a chapter called Gods and Monsters, you think there'd be a character who regularly deals with that kind of stuff in a more important position. Especially if we're gonna keep legacy as a central theme of this saga, Zatanna should be high on that list of adaptations for the DCU. They already went out of their way to confirm that her father Zatara already exists in this universe as one of the only relevant and recognizable characters on that mural in the Hall of Justice, so I have to imagine that was done for a reason. Give us a Zatanna movie that explores her relationship with her father and acts as an origin story for the character. Zatara can go missing, sending her down a path that forever changes the trajectory of her life as she discovers her true magical abilities and has to learn how to say spells backwards. Honestly, remembering how to do that seems more challenging than anything else she has to do, and maybe any other superhero for that reason. I'd love to see Batman try and say something backwards. What's really fun about Zatanna though, is that it always seems like there's a constant mystery surrounding her and her lineage. Add in some of the coolest magic and sorcery you've ever seen from an underappreciated powerhouse, and she feels tailor-made for a film. And if we're talking about characters who would work great in a mystery setting, you can't find anyone better than The Question. I'm genuinely shocked he hasn't been given his own series yet. There has truly never been a comic book character that needs a show more than him, especially after Rorschach stole his entire flow bar for bar. Probably a bad idea to say this now in the direct middle point of the video, but if I could only make one of these projects happen, it's this. I'm sure the rest of these characters have a real possibility of appearing in movies and shows, but I need to guarantee that The Question finally gets a series. Not only is he one of my favorite DC characters, but this faceless man was made for television. Vic Sage is an unhinged and ruthless reporter turned vigilante who gets his thrills combating corruption in Hub City. He does so wearing a mask made out of an experimental material called pseudonerm, and it gives him one of the coldest designs of all time. Just look at the aura, man. He is so cool. As a violent crusader of justice with an interest in philosophy and objectivism, he's constantly on the search for meaning. And some versions have him as a paranoid conspiracy theorist. And also there was that one time he died and became a Black Lantern. But I like the conspiracy-minded, investigative part of the character much more. He's a fascinating detective that seriously needs a show already. Why has it not been greenlit since I started talking about him? You've had more than enough time, James. Surely you see the vision by now, right? A low-budget, case-of-the-week investigative style series that explores a new philosophical question every episode seems like a recipe for success. He was also trained to fight by Richard Dragon, one of the best hand-to-hand combatants in the DC universe, so it's not like the series will be lacking in action either. Whether it be the Vic Sage version of the character or his successor, the Renee Montoya, both of them offer really interesting perspectives that should be shown in live action. I would love to see them explore the grittiness of the DCU to contrast the larger-than-life aesthetic we've seen thus far with a character like The Question. Who wouldn't want to see a brutal detective show where the main character is trying to answer essential questions of the universe while also unraveling the mystery of himself? Anyone who doesn't is no friend of mine and will be caught and compromised to a permanent end. Okay, before I get arrested for all these threats, let me just jump into my next choices. That's right, we got two people because they are a package deal. I desperately need to see a Green Arrow and Black Canary movie. I know we had an Arrow show that ran for 7 seasons and spawned an entire aforementioned Arrowverse, but come on man, be serious. That show is always gonna have a soft spot in my heart, but that is not the Oliver Queen of the comics. It's so obvious they wanted to make a Batman show first, and when they couldn't get the rights, they just took Green Arrow and basically turned him into Green Batman. There wasn't any of that classic swashbuckling action with the lighthearted tone Oliver Queen was known for. And more importantly, they killed off Black Canary 4 seasons in. Oliver's equal and one of the most interesting DC heroes out there was killed off for shock value. I simply can't let that stand, so I need a movie to set things right and finally let us see those star-crossed lovers thrive in live action together. If James Gunn is a real one, he'd bring Journey Smollett back as Black Canary too. Peacemaker made the Suicide Squad canon, and that tangentially makes Birds of Prey canon, and I think she did a great job in the role and would love to see her continue. DCU canon is already a mess, so why not just go the extra mile here? But if we must recast, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make to get them together in a movie already. Green Arrow and Black Canary have such a fun and messy dynamic together as it's far from a perfect romance, but the way they balance each other out makes it feel like an authentic couple. I also really love the idea of heavily focusing on Green Arrow and Black Canary with how comic booky the DCU is right now. Superman alone showed that kaijus, interdimensional imps, and pocket dimensions are the most casual thing ever. So how the hell is a guy with a bow and arrow and a girl with a loud voice supposed to combat that? You can't get much more grounded than Ollie and Dinah when it comes to vigilantes, and they could carve out their own exciting corner of the universe on the everyday level. You could even throw in Speedy if you'd like, and go crazy getting the entire Arrow family in an ideal trilogy. Hone in on the themes of family as Oliver and Dinah play huge roles in the DCU. That being said, if there is one thing I really want this movie to embrace, it's the political nature of Green Arrow's stories. I don't even think it's an argument to say that Oliver Queen is the most overtly political character in DC. If you tried to tell a Green Arrow story without including his activism, you'd be making a movie about a different character. His beliefs are that intrinsically tied to his history and personality. The idea of a wealthy and kinda douchey socialite that gets humbled while stranded on an island and changes his entire worldview is a fascinating concept and allows for some very great and much needed commentary on wealth. Seeing him return home, no longer taking things for granted and becoming a real-life Robin Hood as he steals from the rich to give to the poor is a tale as old as time. I would also go as far as saying that he's a character whose origin story could start in the present day of the DCU and might hit even harder when there are corporations, monopolies, and rich people basically running the place. Let me watch Ollie grapple with trying to create radical and systemic change as he tries to figure out if there's a way to be an ethical billionaire. I want to see him help out all the little guys he used to screw over and do everything he can to prohibit other people from doing that same thing. It's what makes him stand out as a character. I could not imagine a world where the Green Arrow wasn't advocating for progressive change. It's honestly needed now more than ever. Really, any kind of left-leaning ideology is needed with the dystopia we currently live in, but that's a can of worms I'm far too scared to dive into, so let's just move on to my final pitch. By far, my favorite thing about the DCU right now is how unashamedly comic booky it is. After years of suffering through gritty and realistic superhero adaptations, it's cool to see movies and shows that openly embrace what made these stories so special in the comics. So, if we want to continue down that path, I would love to see the DCU attempt to make a New Gods series. I know there's already an animated Mr. Miracle show in development which will probably touch on a few of these ideas, but that's going to be adapting Tom King's run on the character, and I would much rather focus on the Jack Kirby side of these stories. Plus, it's kinda hard to tell if this series is going to be canon to the DCU, and also ideally less Tom King all around if possible. The reason I said attempt earlier is because they're some of the most inventive and confusing characters DC has to offer, with truly out of this world storytelling, but if there's anyone that can do it, it's James Gunn. I feel like I have to give an introduction for the New Gods because there's no way all of you have a firm grasp on what they are. Honestly, I barely do, but we must press on. The New Gods were born from the genius mind of Jack Kirby and part of his Fourth World series, created after he left Marvel and was basically given a blank canvas to make whatever he wanted to do over at DC. To put it in the most simple possible way I can think of right now, the immortal deities of New Genesis, ruled by Highfather, and Apocalypse, ruled by that dark side, are in a constant war against each other in the battle of good and evil. From there, it spirals out into a lot of complex stories involving sun swaps, family drama, and granny goodness. I cannot stress enough how important she is to this whole equation. She is one of Satan's greatest soldiers. Give me a proper live-action granny goodness because that doesn't count, or give me death. With how colorful and convoluted Jack Kirby's beautifully pure creative vision was, it is such a daunting task to try and translate all of that into live action. So I would be happy to accept an animated series as well. There's such a specific visual style and tone that straying from it in the slightest would feel like a slap in the face to such a treasured universe. I don't envy anyone trying to make it happen, especially because they came very close to getting a film in the DCEU. I know, another failed DCEU movie. How shocking. It's not like there's 80 of those. But it may have been a blessing in disguise, as we can now see them adapted into a universe that is happy to embrace the absurdity from the comics. Plus, all those Snyder Cult people keep yelling about how we were supposed to get Darkseid, so here's how you can appease them. That's definitely the kind of Darkseid they were asking for, right? It's not like those people only care about hype moments and aura, right? Unironically, I need Gunn to introduce Darkseid in that rumored Jimmy Olsen show as a reference to how Darkseid's first appearance was in a Jimmy Olsen comic, and then just go all in on the New Gods from there. Bait the mainstream public in with the big bad of DC they think he is, and then hit them with the weirdest and most uniquely Kirby stories possible. I don't want the DCU to play things safe. Take a big swing with the New Gods by giving them a series that fully dive into how insane those stories get, or we're gonna have some problems. Or they could just make a blue and gold movie. Listen, I know I said I couldn't include Booster Gold, but this has Ted Kord's Blue Beetle, and he's technically a new character, so it counts. And we're at the end of the video, so nobody's watching. I can get away with including it now. Okay, fine, I won't include it, but just know that I think it should happen. Regardless of if any of these movies end up coming to fruition one day, I'm just glad to see a DCU with so many active projects in development, and ones that actually have a good chance at happening and won't get canceled after wasting years teasing us with them. Never forget what they took from you. The future of DC has truly never been brighter, as it seems like we're constantly being hit with new movies and shows being announced, which I love to see. I just hope that one of those future projects is one of the ideas I pitched here today, and I expect full compensation if you use any of them, James. Get that checkbook out and run me my money, man. You made $15 million on Superman alone, dude. You can afford it. But why don't you let me know who you want to see get their own DCU project? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm canceling the DCU and we're going back to the universe at the end of The Flash. And nobody wants to see that. Not even James Gunn after those weird comments he made about The Flash being the greatest movie of all time. Why did he say that?